I was replacing the winter tires on my truck in the garage when I felt it. My fingers brushed against something that shouldn't have been there, tucked up under the rear wheel well. Cold metal, smooth plastic, a device about the size of a deck of cards, held in place by a magnetic mount. At 67 years old, I'd worked as a mechanical engineer for 42 years before retiring. I knew every inch of my 2015 Silverado. This didn't belong. My name is Robert Whitmore, and I live in a quiet neighborhood in Mississauga, Ontario. I've owned this house for 35 years, raised 2 kids here with my late wife Catherine. She passed 3 years ago from cancer, and since then, I'd been managing just fine on my own, or so I thought. I carefully removed the device and brought it inside. The label on the back read TrackPro 3000. A quick search on my laptop confirmed what I suspected. This was a real-time GPS tracker, the kind that updates location every few seconds. Professional grade, not cheap. My mind raced through the possibilities. Who would want to track a retired engineer? I didn't have enemies. I kept to myself mostly, maintained the house, volunteered at the community center twice a week. Then a cold realization settled in my gut. 3 days ago, my son Marcus had stopped by unannounced. He'd seemed nervous, kept looking at his phone. He'd asked about my truck, said he wanted to make sure the old man was driving something safe. I'd thought it was sweet at the time. Marcus was 42, worked in tech sales downtown, married to Nicole for 8 years. They had a nice condo in Liberty Village. But Marcus had been different lately. The past 6 months, he'd been asking questions about the house, about my investments, about my will. Each time, I'd brushed it off as normal concern from a son worried about his aging father. I sat at my kitchen table, turning the tracker over in my hands. The logical thing would be to confront Marcus directly, ask him why. But something Catherine used to say echoed in my mind: when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. If Marcus was tracking me, there was a reason, and I needed to know what it was before I showed my hand. I called my old colleague from Bombardier, Dale Patterson. Dale had retired 2 years before me and moved to Winnipeg with his wife. We'd stayed in touch, talked every few weeks. "Dale, I need a favor, a strange one." "What's going on, Rob?" "I found a GPS tracker on my truck. I need to send it somewhere far away for a few days. Can I mail it to you? Don't ask questions yet. I'll explain everything once I know more." There was a pause. Dale and I had worked together for 20 years. He knew I wasn't the type for pranks or drama. "Yeah, okay. But you better call me and tell me what this is about." "I will. I promise." I packaged the tracker carefully, made sure it was still powered on, and drove to the Canada Post Office on Lakeshore. Sent it express to Dale's address in Winnipeg. The clerk said it would arrive in 2 days. Then I waited. That first night, I barely slept. I kept my phone on the nightstand, checking it every hour. Nothing unusual. I made breakfast the next morning, went about my routine, took the bus to the grocery store instead of driving. If someone was watching my location, they'd see I was still in Mississauga, just not moving much. The tracker would have arrived in Winnipeg by late afternoon on the second day. I imagined it sitting on Dale's kitchen counter, 1,200 kilometers away, pinging its location to whoever was monitoring it. My phone rang at 9:47 p.m. that night. "Marcus." "Hey, Dad, just checking in. How are you doing?" His voice was tight, strained. "I'm fine, son. Just watching the Leafs game." "What's up?" "Nothing. Just. Have you been home all day?" My pulse quickened. "Yeah, mostly. Went to Loblaws this morning." "Why?" "No reason. Your truck running okay?" "Haven't driven it in a couple days, actually." "Took the bus." "Why all the questions about my truck?" "Marcus. Just making sure you're taking care of yourself, Dad. That's all." But it wasn't all. I could hear something in his voice. Anxiety. Maybe fear. "Marcus, if there's something you need to talk about, you can tell me." No. Everything's fine. I'll call you tomorrow. Okay?" He hung up before I could respond. I sat there in the dark living room, the blue glow of the TV casting shadows on the walls. My son had just lied to me, and whatever he was involved in, it was serious enough that my sudden trip to Winnipeg had rattled him. The next morning, I called someone I should have called years ago. Elizabeth Tran was a family lawyer Catherine and I had consulted when we were updating our wills back in 2019. She was sharp, thorough, and didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Mr. Whitmore, Good to hear from you. What can I help you with? I told her everything. The tracker, Marcus's questions about my assets, his strange behavior, the phone call last night. She was quiet for a moment. Mr. Whitmore, I'm going to be very direct with you. What you're describing sounds like the beginning stages of financial elder abuse. It's more common than people think, and unfortunately, it often involves family members. The word abuse hit me like a punch. But Marcus is my son. We've always been close. I'm not saying he's definitely involved in something illegal, but the pattern you're describing is concerning. Has anyone asked you to sign any documents lately? I thought back. No, nothing recent. Okay, here's what I want you to do. Check your credit report. Make sure there are no loans or credit cards opened in your name. Check your bank accounts for any unusual activity. And I want to review your will and power of attorney documents. Can you come in tomorrow? Yes, absolutely. That afternoon, I logged into my bank account. Everything looked normal. My pension deposits came in like clockwork. My bills were paid. Nothing unusual. I checked my TransUnion credit report next. Clean, no new accounts. But as I was logging out, I noticed something in my browser history. Searches I hadn't made. Home equity line of credit requirements. How to become power of attorney in Ontario. Nursing home costs in Mississauga. I always cleared my browser history out of habit. These searches were from 2 weeks ago, when Marcus had visited and I'd left him alone in my study for 15 minutes while I made coffee. My hands shook as I took screenshots of everything. The meeting with Elizabeth the next day was sobering. She reviewed my documents carefully. My will was straightforward. Everything split evenly between Marcus and my daughter Diane, who lived in Vancouver. My power of attorney was designated to both of them jointly, meaning they'd both have to agree on any decisions if I became incapacitated. That's good, Elizabeth said. Joint POA makes it harder for one person to act alone. But I want you to be prepared. If Marcus is planning something, he might try to have you declared incompetent so he can take control of your finances. That's insane. I'm 67, not 90. I'm in perfect health. Doesn't matter. I've seen cases where adult children claim their parent has dementia or isn't capable of making decisions. They doctor evidence, get a complicit doctor to sign off, and boom, they have control. Your house alone is worth what, 800,000? About that, yeah. And your retirement savings? Around 500,000 in RRSPs and TFSAs. She nodded. That's motivation enough. Here's what we're going to do. I want you to get a cognitive assessment done by a neurologist. Document that you're of sound mind. I also want you to install a security camera in your home. Something subtle. If Marcus comes over and tries to get you to sign anything, or says anything incriminating, we need it on record. This feels like I'm treating my own son like a criminal. Mr. Whitmore, I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But if I'm right, you need to protect yourself. Your daughter in Vancouver, is she aware of any of this? No. Diane and I talk every week, but I haven't mentioned anything. She and Marcus have always gotten along fine. Keep her in the loop. You might need her support. I left Elizabeth's office feeling like I'd aged 10 years. But she was right. I needed to know the truth. I installed 2 small cameras that week. One in the living room, disguised as a clock on the bookshelf. One in the study, hidden in a stack of books on the desk. Both connected to an app on my phone, recording to cloud storage. I called Dale in Winnipeg and told him to mail the tracker back to me. It arrived 3 days later. I put it back exactly where I'd found it on my truck. Then I waited again. Marcus called the following Monday. Hey, Dad. Nicole and I want to take you out for dinner, Friday night. That new steakhouse on Dundas. Our treat. That sounds nice. Any special occasion? No. Just want to spend time with you. Something in his tone made my stomach knot. But I agreed. Friday evening, I made sure both cameras were recording before I left. Marcus picked me up at 6. Nicole was in the passenger seat, offering a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Dinner was awkward. Marcus kept steering the conversation toward my health, asking if I'd been forgetful lately, if I'd been taking my medications properly. I didn't take any medications except a daily vitamin, but I didn't correct him. You know, Dad, Nicole and I have been talking. This house is a lot for you to manage on your own. Have you ever thought about downsizing? Maybe one of those nice retirement communities? There it was. I like my house. Marcus. I'm not ready to leave it. I know, but think about it. You're 67. What happens if you fall down the stairs? Or forget to turn off the stove? We worry about you. I appreciate your concern, but I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself. Nicole chimed in. Robert, we're just thinking about your future. These communities have nurses on staff, activities, meals prepared for you. Wouldn't that be easier? I don't need easier. I need my home. The rest of the dinner was tense. Marcus drove me back in silence. As I got out of the truck, he called after me. Dad, just think about what we said, okay? I nodded and went inside. But here's what I didn't tell them. 2 days before that dinner, Elizabeth had received a call from a nursing home in Oakville. They'd received an inquiry about availability and costs for Robert Whitmore. The person who called had claimed to be my son, said I was showing signs of dementia and needed assessment for placement. Elizabeth had asked them to send her the details of the call. They did. It was Marcus's cell phone number. I sat in my living room that night, watching the camera footage from before I left. Marcus had arrived 20 minutes early. I saw myself on screen, answering the door, saying I needed 5 more minutes to get ready. I'd gone upstairs to change my shirt, and in those 5 minutes, Marcus had gone into my study. I watched as he opened my filing cabinet, pulled out documents, took photos with his phone. The angle was perfect. I could see exactly what he was photographing. My will, my investment statements, the deed to my house. The next footage was worse. Marcus opened my desk drawer, pulled out my checkbook. He took a blank check, held it up to the light, then tucked it in his jacket pocket. I felt sick. That night, I called Diane in Vancouver, told her everything. She was silent for a long time. Dad, I don't want to believe Marcus would do this. But if he is, we need to stop him. I know. I'm meeting with Elizabeth again on Monday. But Diane, I need to ask you something. Has Marcus ever mentioned anything about money problems? She hesitated. Last Christmas, he mentioned that Nicole's family business was struggling. Something about debt, but he said they were handling it. How much debt? He didn't say. But Dad, you don't think. I don't know what to think anymore. Monday morning, Elizabeth and I sat in her office, reviewing everything. The camera footage, the nursing home inquiry, the stolen check. This is enough to go to the police, she said. This is fraud, attempted theft, possibly even planning financial abuse. But he's my son, and he's trying to rob you, possibly institutionalize you against your will so he can control your assets. Mr. Whitmore, I know this is hard, but you need to act now before he does something you can't undo. I thought about Catherine. What would she say? She'd loved Marcus fiercely, but she'd also had a steel core when it came to right and wrong. What do I need to do? First, we report the stolen check to your bank. Close that account. Open a new one. Second, we file a police report with Peel Regional Police. Third, we get a restraining order preventing Marcus from accessing your property or finances. And fourth, she paused. We prepare for the fact that this might get very ugly. The police took my statement that afternoon. Detective Sarah Morrison from the fraud unit listened to everything, watched the footage, took copies of all my documentation. Mr. Whitmore, I'm sorry you're going through this. Unfortunately, financial exploitation of seniors is an epidemic. The fact that you caught it early is in your favor. We'll investigate, but I need to warn you, cases involving family members are complicated. Your son will likely claim he was just trying to help you. With a stolen check, people have talked their way out of worse. But we'll do our best. 2 days later, Marcus showed up at my door. I watched him through the window. He looked agitated, kept checking his phone. I didn't answer. He knocked harder. Dad, I know you're home. We need to talk. I called Detective Morrison. She told me to stay inside, that an officer would be there in 10 minutes. Marcus was still pounding on the door when the police cruiser pulled up. I watched from the window as 2 officers approached him, spoke with him. His face went from confusion to anger to fear in the span of 30 seconds. They escorted him away from my property, gave him the restraining order. I saw him reading it, his hands shaking. He looked up at my window. Our eyes met. And for just a second, I saw my little boy, the kid who'd built model rockets in the garage with me, who'd called me crying when Catherine died, who'd hugged me at her funeral and told me we'd get through it together. Then the moment passed. He turned and walked to his car. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Detective Morrison called me a week later. They'd searched Marcus's condo, found documents, plans, a draft power of attorney document with my forged signature. They'd practiced copying it using the check he'd stolen. They'd also found evidence of significant gambling debt. Marcus owed over $200,000 to various online casinos and private lenders. Nicole was involved too. She'd been the one to contact the nursing home, to research how to have someone declared incompetent. They'd planned to get me institutionalized, sell my house, and drain my accounts to pay off their debts. The trial happened 8 months later. Marcus pleaded guilty to fraud, theft, and attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person. Nicole pleaded guilty to conspiracy and fraud. I sat in the courtroom and listened to the Crown attorney lay out everything. How Marcus had put the tracker on my truck to monitor my movements. How they'd planned to isolate me from Diane and my friends. How they'd even researched drugs that could mimic dementia symptoms. When it was my turn to give a victim impact statement, I looked at Marcus sitting at the defendant's table. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "I'm not angry," I said, and I meant it. "I'm heartbroken. I'm devastated that my own son, the boy I raised, the man I trusted, could see me as nothing more than a bank account to raid. I'm grateful I discovered the truth when I did, but I'll never get back what I lost. I didn't just lose money or property. I lost my son, and that's something no court can fix." Marcus got 6 years. Nicole got 4. Diane flew in from Vancouver for the sentencing. She held my hand as they led Marcus away. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, honey. I should have seen something. Should have known. No one wants to believe someone they love is capable of this. That's what makes it so painful." In the months after the trial, I had to rebuild my life. I changed my will, updated all my passwords and banking information. I installed a full security system in the house. I joined a support group for seniors who'd experienced financial abuse from family members. The meetings were eye-opening. There were dozens of us. Parents whose children had forged their signatures, siblings who'd stolen inheritances, caregivers who'd emptied accounts. The stories were all different, but the pain was the same: the betrayal, the violation of trust. But here's what I learned. You're never too old to protect yourself. You're never too trusting to ask questions. And family isn't an excuse for abuse. I also learned that I wasn't alone. Diane called me every single day. My friends from the community center rallied around me. Even Dale flew in from Winnipeg to spend a weekend, told me stories that made me laugh for the first time in months. One afternoon, about a year after the trial, I was working in my garden when a woman approached my driveway. She was in her 50s, looked nervous. "Mr. Whitmore, I'm sorry to bother you. My name is Patricia Novak. I saw your story in the news. My mother is going through something similar with my brother, and she doesn't know what to do. I was wondering if you'd be willing to talk to her." I invited Patricia in, made tea, called her mother on speakerphone and talked her through the steps I'd taken, gave her Elizabeth's contact information, told her she wasn't crazy, she wasn't being paranoid, and she had every right to protect herself. I've done that 43 times now. Talked to parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles who suspected something was wrong but didn't know how to handle it. Each time, I tell them the same thing Catherine would have told me. Trust yourself. Document everything. And don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting what's yours. I'm 70 now, still in my house, still managing just fine. Diane visits twice a year, and we talk on the phone every Sunday morning. I have grandchildren. I Skype with every week, her kids. Not Marcus's. I don't know if he has children. I don't know where he is now that he's out of prison. I haven't heard from him. Sometimes I wonder if I did the right thing, if I should have confronted him privately, given him a chance to explain. But then I remember the footage of him stealing my check, the forged documents, the nursing home inquiry, and I know that what I did wasn't about punishment. It was about survival. Because here's the truth they don't tell you about getting older. People will see you as vulnerable, as an easy target, and sometimes those people will be the ones you love most, the ones you'd give anything for, the ones you already gave everything to while raising them. But vulnerability isn't the same as helplessness, and trust isn't the same as blindness. If you're reading this, or listening to this, and something sounds familiar if your adult child is suddenly very interested in your finances, if someone's pressuring you to sign documents you don't understand, If you feel like you're being monitored or controlled, please trust that instinct. Talk to a lawyer, talk to the police. Talk to someone you trust who's outside the situation. You deserve to live your final years in peace, not in fear. You worked your whole life for what you have. Don't let anyone take it from you, family or otherwise. And if you're someone who's thinking about exploiting an elderly parent or relative, know that we're smarter than you think. We've lived longer, seen more, and survived worse than you can imagine. You might fool us for a while, but you won't get away with it forever. The garage where this all started looks the same as it did 3 years ago. My Silverado is still parked there, winter tires on, ready for the snow. Sometimes I run my hand along the wheel well where I found that tracker, just to remind myself that I trusted my instincts that day, that I didn't brush it off or make excuses. That small act of paying attention saved my life. Maybe my story can save someone else's. Where are you listening from? Have you ever felt like something was off with a family member's behavior around money? Trust that feeling. It might just be the most important thing you ever do.